All right, let's follow up about the situation in Bolivia. We are seeing effectively the worst possible outcome of the resignation of former Bolivian President Evo Morales taking place right now, which is that an absolutely bonkers religious nut, supported by some of the worst extremist right-wing fascistic ideologues, has apparently succeeded at seizing power, at least temporarily, in Bolivia, literally showing up with Bible in hand and racist comments to boot. I'm talking about Jeanine Áñez Chavez. She's a senator. She said she's taking power, and her power grab is being recognized by the United States, by Russia, and by many others. And she's a completely bonkers religious zealot racist. Now, let's go back before we get into the details. Many of you appreciated my commentary a couple of days ago about Bolivia, where I tried to explain in the best way I know that a lot of black-white interpretations of Latin American politics by people in the United States fall short. And that as someone who is from Argentina and have seen how my family was affected by a military dictatorship and this sort of balancing or shift that happens between supposed left-wing populists who become authoritarians and military dictatorships and all of this stuff, it's a pattern that is very common in Latin America. The United States has some to do with that, but is not solely responsible, and that any black-white interpretation of this is merely the fault of the United States, this is simply a populist hero, this is simply a military coup. None of these analyses are going to accurately portray what is taking place in Bolivia or in most of these situations in Latin America. So a lot of people appreciated my commentary. Of course, as expected, I was, quote, ratioed by people who are just absolutely furious with me. And, you know, I'm a shill. My family was pro-dictatorship in Argentina. That's absolutely insane allegation to make, all of that stuff. But I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing the story the way I see it. And hopefully there is some value for most of the people in the audience. So the racist religious zealot senator shows up and says, I assume the presidency immediately and will do everything necessary to pacify the country. A Bolivian constitutional court almost immediately backs her assumption of power. The United States backs it. As I mentioned, Russia backs it, and other countries do. And it is very quickly getting extremely ugly. Number one, she's a straight up racist. Tweeting some years ago, I'll read this in Spanish and then I'll translate it for you shortly. Sueño con una Bolivia libre de ritos satánicos indígenas. La ciudad no es para los indios que se vayan al altiplano o al Chaco. My translation is, I dream of a Bolivia free from the satanic rituals of indigenous people. Evo Morales, of course, the first indigenous president of Bolivia. The city isn't for Indians who should go to the plateau or to the Chaco, which is like a rural region in Bolivia. So this is already disgusting, but it gets even worse. She showed up holding an oversized Bible. It looks oversized to me. I guess I'm not an expert in Bible sizes, but it looks like this one is comically large. Walking towards the presidential palace, holding it. Take a look at this.
Estás viendo, la presidenta está llegando al antiguo palacio presidencial con una Biblia, al parecer. Es en la que se va a juramentar en el recinto antiguo. Dice que
ha permitido que la Biblia vuelva a entrar a palacio. Que Él nos bendiga. ¡Gloria a Dios! ¡Gloria a Dios! ¡Dios nos bendiga, nuestro presidente! ¡Esa presi!
la Biblia vuelve a palacio. Un momento simbólico por lo que vemos, porque dice que es para que entre la Biblia al Palacio de Gobierno. Como puedes ver, es algo difícil entrar y tenemos que ser.
So again, if you were in the group that responded to my commentary a couple of days ago saying, David, oh my, you're for the coup. Come on. I told you, I am not going to participate in the talking points of either side on this. I don't want militaries forcing people in or out. I recognize the corruption of Evo Morales and the sketchiness of his finding a way to stay in power 13 years when, upon being elected to that term, the initial term, he was entitled to, I don't remember now if it was a 5 or a 6 year term. Sorry if I have the numbers mixed up. But I also don't want this. It's sort of like, I believe that the Chavez regime of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, have raped and pillaged the country and its resources for their gain. But I don't want the United States installing some neoliberal clown puppet there. How are both possible? Well, because I have no interest in applying inappropriate or insufficient black-white standards that make no sense for the situations that are far more complicated than that. So listen, if Chavez, and I'm talking about the new president, interim president, Jeanine Áñez Chavez, if she runs an election in the next 90 days in which she is not a candidate and it is a free and fair election, okay, then we might have something to talk about here. If she doesn't, and or if she is herself a candidate in an election that she oversees after seizing the interim presidency, then we have a problem and we'll be following it. And of course, regardless, we have a problem anyway, because this is an absolutely disgusting person to be taking control in Venezuela, in Bolivia. So, as far as the reactions of people saying that this is simply a military coup, or this is simply the peaceful and uncoercive resignation of the Bolivian president, this is neither of those things. This is a much more complicated situation. One of the main supporters, by the way, we should mention, one of the main supporters of the resignation of Evo Morales is a complete and total fascist. You have lunatics trying to swoop in. Luis Fernando Camacho is a far-right fascist extremist who has wanted Evo Morales out for a while. And it is absolutely and utterly toxic and disgusting. But what people have to understand is that, and I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job of making this clear, these situations cannot possibly be interpreted as good/bad. Simple military coup versus not at all, right? The reality is much more complex. This is, unfortunately, the never-ending quagmire of Latin American politics. People claiming to be leftist populists get into power, become authoritarians when they get elected, and use or manipulate the system in order to stay in power longer than they are actually supposed to at the time of the election. But then in come the fascists to push them out while claiming to be better, but actually being terrible and in and of themselves. And meanwhile, and this is the saddest thing, the populations are the ones that suffer. We've seen it in various forms in Venezuela, in Argentina, in Chile, Nicaragua, Honduras, Bolivia, Brazil. We've seen this time and time again. And, not to make this now about Argentina, but it's maybe the situation I know best. Listen, my family was not pro-dictatorship. My family was not the privileged academic white people. We left Argentina because we had no money and it was an absolute economic collapse in 1989. But it's sad to me when I see people who say, the Kirchner regime is going to save us and it coming back is going to save us. No, it's not. Or the alternatives that we have to the Kirchner regime are what are going to save us. Sadly, no, that the situation is much more complex. And to see people fighting and family relationships being lost over it, when in the end, either way, there is not going to be an improvement with the options that are presented, a measurable, serious improvement. It's very, very sad. And a lot of the same is going on here in Bolivia. So I don't have a prescription. I'm merely going to try to tell it to you as I see it, and disagree with me or agree with me. These are my genuine opinions. These are not my carefully crafted and calculated opinions in order to support or attack a particular group or contingency. Let me know your thoughts on Twitter at @Pakman. Remember that on Thanksgiving, we will be emailing everybody on our newsletter list with our huge, bigly tremendous year-end membership special. Get on our newsletter at davidpakman.com if you want to be notified of that.